I want you to just try and visualize something for a second.
Okay.
Imagine a journey that completely ignores the laws of physics as we know them. I mean, we are talking about traveling hundreds of miles in an instant, ascending through the layers of the atmosphere, and entering a realm that is, well, technically unseen
And all of this happens in a single night.
in a single night.
It's sort of the ultimate hero's journey. But, usually stories like that belong to mythology or maybe sci-fi.
Right.
Today, we are looking at an event that millions of people consider a historical, factual reality. We are talking about the Isra and Miraj, the night journey, and ascension of the Prophet Muhammad.
And to guide us through this, we aren't just skimming, the usual online sources. We are doing a deep dive into a very specific, very dense text. We're pulling from the Isra and Mi series by Maulana Maki, specifically chapter 14.
And what's so interesting about this particular source is that Maulana Maki doesn't just tell the story like a fairy tale. He treats it as a complex theological argument. He gets into the mechanics of the miracle, the preparation required for the human body to even survive it, and the heavy symbolism of what was actually seen.
So our mission today is really to unpack those layers. We want to move past the Sunday school summary and get into the gritty details, the how, the why, and frankly, the what on earth.
And there is plenty of what on earth to cover.
So let's start with the elephant in the room. This is the debate that seems to pop up every single time this story is retold. Was this a physical journey did his actual body travel through the sky, or was this a vivid spiritual dream? Because those are two very different things.
They're massively different. I mean, if it's a dream, it's a vision. It happens in the mind.
Right.
If it's a physical, you're talking about the suspension of gravity, oxygen requirements, time dilation, the works.
Yeah.
Now, the source material here is very transparent. It acknowledges that there is a narration attributed to Aisha, the Prophet's wife, suggesting it was a spiritual vision of the soul.
Okay, so there is room for that interpretation.
There is room for the discussion, but the source pivots hard to what is called the Jumhur, which refers to the consensus of the vast majority of scholars throughout history. And the argument presented in this text is that if you look at the linguistics, it has to be physical, body and soul locked together.
What's the evidence for that? Because proving physicality from a text that's, 1,400 years old seems tricky.
It actually comes down to a single word in the Quran. The chapter starts with Subhanallah Azra bi abdi. Glory to him who took his servant for a journey.
Okay.
The smoking gun, according to Maulana Maki, is that word, abut.
Servant. Hold on, though. Does one word really carry that much weight? Servant seems like a pretty standard religious term. Why does the source treat this as proof of a physical journey?
It's all about linguistic precision. The source argues that ab isn't just a job title, it's a definition of a state of being.
A state of being.
In Arabic, when you say abdi, you're referring to the composite human, the hardware and the software, the body and the soul acting in unison.
So if I'm sleeping and I have a dream, my soul might be active, but my body is, dormant. I'm not functioning as a complete abid in that moment.
Precisely. If the text wanted to describe a dream, the argument is that it would have used ruh for spirit or manam for sleep. But by selecting ab, the text is explicitly grounding the event in physical reality. It's asserting that his feet were on the ground, his lungs were breathing.
His eyes were processing photons,
Exactly.
which just raises the stakes immensely.
Yeah.
Because now we aren't talking about a really intense meditation session. We are talking about an anomaly. But here's my question. If we accept the source's premise that this is a physical human body entering a divine celestial realm that seems dangerous, the human body isn't built for that.
It isn't. We are fragile. We carry what the mystics might call worldly dust. And this leads us to the first major scene in the source, which I think is one of the most cinematic moments. It's the preparation phase.
Surgery.
The surgery. We are at the Kaaba, in that semicircular area known as the Hatim. The Prophet is there, and Gabriel Jibril arrives. But he doesn't just say, grab your coat, we're leaving.
No.
He performs a procedure known as Shaka Sadr, or the opening of the chest.
The text describes Gabriel literally opening the prophet's chest. But then it gets strange. The source describes Gabriel bringing a golden tray.
The golden tray, yeah.
And this tray is filled with iman, faith, and hikmah wisdom. Wait, pause there for a second. A tray filled with faith. Usually we think of faith as an abstract concept, a feeling, a conviction. You can't exactly put it in a bucket. How does the source depict this?
That's the beauty of the imagery here. The source describes faith and wisdom almost like physical matter. Gabriel brings this golden tray, and he's not just bringing an idea, he's bringing a substance to be instilled into the heart.
It's like a hardware upgrade.
In a way, yes. But before you can install the new software, you have to format the drive. The source details a washing of the heart. Using Zamzam water to physically scour away doubt, confusion, or that worldly dust we mentioned earlier.
That's so visceral. It implies that to interface with the divine, you can't just walk in as you are. The standard human operating system isn't robust enough to handle the data.
Exactly. It's about capacity. That is the key takeaway from this section. The human vessel had to be supernaturally reinforced to withstand the sights that were coming, because what he was about to see would break a normal mind.
So he is prepped, the heart is washed, the capacity is expanded. Now he needs to move. And he doesn't walk to Jerusalem, he gets a ride.
Into the Barak.
I feel like everyone has a different mental image of this. Some see a horse, some see a winged creature. What does the text actually specify?
The source is very specific to sort of avoid confusion. It describes a white animal. Size-wise, it's an intermediate creature, taller than a donkey, smaller than a mule.
Okay.
But the focus isn't on the aesthetics, it's on the engineering. The movement mechanism is fascinating.
Stride, right?
The source says its hoof lands at the farthest point the eye can see.
I want to make sure I understand the physics of that. So if the creature looks at the horizon,
The next step puts it at the horizon.
that is effectively teleportation.
It's movement tied to vision. Where the sight ends, the step lands. It suggests the complete collapse of distance. And the source connects this to the name itself. Burak comes from the root bark, which means
Lightning.
lightning. So you have this connection between brilliance, light, and a speed that is faster than sound.
And I noticed the source mentions something about the rider protocol. This isn't a public taxi.
No, this is VIP transport. The text mentions this animal is exclusively ridden by prophets or by Gabriel. It highlights the exclusivity of the honor. You don't just hail a Burak, you have to be chosen for the ride.
So we have the preparation and we have the lightning steed. Now the journey begins. The route is from Mecca to Jerusalem, but along the way, or perhaps during the ascent, the source kind of blends the timeline a bit here. The tone of the story shifts.
This shifts dramatically.
We go from this glorious, lightning-fast miracle to something out of a horror movie.
This is the transition from the miraculous to the moral. The prophet starts witnessing scenes. And these are not beautiful landscapes or nebulas. They are visions of punishment. They are specific, graphic warnings.
Let's look at the specific examples the text gives because they are unsettlingly specific. The first one that stood out to me was about riba, or usury charging interest. What did he see?
It's a grotesque image. The source describes people struggling with enormous swollen bellies. They are so weighed down they can barely stand.
Wow.
And the text says they are eating fire and stones.
Eating stones.
It represents the consuming nature of interest. You consume wealth that isn't yours, and it becomes a heavy, destructive weight inside you.
And then there is the image of slander and backbiting. This one really hit me. The text describes people scratching their own faces and chests with copper nails.
That is a nightmare image.
Copper nails. Why that specific imagery?
It's incredibly graphic. The source describes them shredding their own faces. And the logic here is terrifying. In the physical world, when you gossip or backbite, it feels like you're attacking someone else. You're throwing mud at them.
Right, it feels external. I say something mean and you get hurt.
But this vision flips the camera. It argues that the spiritual reality of slander is actually self-mutilation. You aren't destroying their honor, you are stripping the flesh off your own character. The prophet is seeing the reality of the sin stripped of the social veneer we put on it.
It effectively removes the veil. We think a white lie or a bit of gossip is invisible, just air leaving our mouths. But this journey argues that sin has a shape, a weight, and a texture, and it's ugly.
And there's one more example regarding zina or adultery. The prophet sees people who have a plate of good, clean cooked meat in front of them, but right next to it is foul, rotting meat. And they are ignoring the good food to gorge on the rot.
That's a very direct metaphor, choosing the illicit over the lawful.
Even when the lawful is right there and better for you. It frames sin not just as disobedience, but as irrationality. Why choose the rot when you have the feast?
So, having witnessed these moral warnings, this materialization of sin, the journey continues. They arrive in Jerusalem, and then the ascent begins. They go up to the heavens, and this is where I think the source adds a really interesting bureaucratic detail. You can't just walk in.
Now, space is controlled. The source is very specific about the dialogue at the celestial gates. Gabriel asks for them to open. And the guardians, the angels guarding the gates, they don't just throw the doors open, they run a security check.
They ask, "Who is it?" Gabriel identifies himself. Then they ask, "And who is with you?" He says, "Muhammad."
And then comes the key question. Has he been sent for?
Has he been sent for? That implies invitation only.
Exactly. It highlights that the heavens are a guarded, structured dominion. You cannot enter the upper atmosphere of the spiritual world without a divine summons. It's royal court protocol.
Once they are cleared, they move through the levels of heaven. The text mentions meeting various prophets: Adam, Jesus, John, Joseph, Aaron, Abraham. But the text really zooms in on the interaction with Moses, or Musa.
This is a pivotal moment.
And it's fascinating because it frames Moses almost like a senior consultant.
It does. This is where the timeline gets blurred in a fascinating way. You have Moses, who has been dead for centuries, acting as an advisor to the Prophet Muhammad.
So the prophet reaches the highest point, receives the command for the daily prayers, and comes back down. How many prayers were initially commanded?
50 prayers a day.
50, which is a lot. If you do the math, that's a prayer every 20 minutes, assuming you never sleep.
It's a rigorous schedule, to say the least, and the prophet accepts it. He's ready to do it. But on his way back through the heavens, he crosses paths with Moses again. And Moses effectively looks at the assignment and says, "Whoa, hold on."
He sends him back to negotiate. But I love the reason Moses gives. He doesn't just say, "That's too many." He cites his resume.
He does. Moses says, "I have tested the people before you." He refers to his experience with the Israelites. He essentially says, "Look, I managed the children of Israel. I know human nature. Your nation is weaker in body and constitution. They cannot sustain 50 prayers a day. Go back and ask for a reduction."
It's an incredible moment of solidarity. Moses isn't jealous of the new prophet. He's protective of the people who haven't even been born yet. He knows that 50 times a day isn't just difficult. It's impossible for the average person to sustain without breaking.
And it works. The prophet goes back and forth. The source implies multiple trips until the number is reduced to 5. And here's the kicker. Moses actually suggests going back again, even at 5.
He thinks 5 is still too much.
He implies it might be, but at that point, the prophet says he is too shy to ask for more. He accepts the 5. But the source presents this beautifully. The 5 daily prayers that Muslims perform today are framed as a mercy that was mediated by the experience of a previous prophet. It connects the two dispensations.
That is a beautiful connection. Now, before we wrap up the narrative, there is one more segment in the source that I found absolutely mesmerizing. It's about the adhan, the call to prayer.
This is a profound theological point in the text. The source describes a divine dialogue regarding the adhan.
Usually we think of the adhan as a human activity, right? A person climbs a minaret and calls out to other people, but the source flips the perspective.
It describes that when the phrases of the adhan are recited, Allah affirms them directly from the heavens. When the greatness of God is proclaimed, affirmation follows. But the specific part the source highlights is the declaration of prophethood.
Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God.
Right. And the source describes Allah saying in response, "I chose him, I sent him."
I chose him, I sent him.
Think about the context. On earth, in Mecca, people are calling him a liar. They are rejecting him. But here, in the highest celestial court, the source of all authority is confirming, yes, this is my choice, this is my messenger.
It validates the entire mission. It's like the CEO confirming the appointment while middle management is squabbling in the break room.
That's a very corporate way to put it, but yes, essentially.
So let's step back and look at the whole picture. This is such a dense event. We have the physical preparation, the washing of the heart with Zamzam, the lightning fast journey on the Burak, the visual warnings of what sin actually looks like, the copper nails, the fire, the meeting with Moses and the negotiation of prayer, and finally, the divine affirmation.
It is a massive download of information.
It really is. So let's bring this back down to earth for our listener. If you are the learner listening to this, what is the big takeaway? What is the so what of the Isra and Miraj based on this text?
I think the biggest takeaway connects the preparation to the destination. The story emphasizes that spiritual elevation requires preparation. The prophet didn't just fly up, he had to be washed. He had to have his capacity expanded. You can't reach higher states of understanding with a cluttered heart.
That idea of capacity is so key. You can't run the software without the hardware upgrade.
And secondly, it shows that the physical world and the spiritual world are deeply intertwined. They're not separate boxes. Your actions here, like usury or slander, have a physical shape in the spiritual world. And the spiritual command, like the 5 prayers, has a direct impact on your physical day. The night journey bridges that gap. It tells us that what we do with our bodies matters to our souls.
That is a powerful thought. The internal and the external are just mirrors of each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought. It's something that struck me in the text description of the limit.
The Sitrat al-Muntaha.
Yes, the lote tree of the utmost boundary. The source mentions that at a certain point near the very top of the ascent, Gabriel stops. This is Gabriel, an angel made of light, the mightiest of the angels, the one who destroys cities. But he stops. He says he cannot go further or his wings will burn. He has a limit.
He reaches his ceiling.
But the prophet continues. The human being goes where the angel cannot. And I think that raises such a provocative question. If even the greatest angel has a ceiling, but a human being, prepared and purified, can go beyond it, what does that say about the potential of the human spirit?
It suggests our potential is far greater than we give ourselves credit for.
We often think of ourselves as just humans, flawed and weak. But this story suggests that perhaps our ceiling is much, much higher than even the angels.
That is a thought worth meditating on.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Until next time.